All right, a live look in New York City where day 5 of the United Nations General Assembly is currently underway. We expect to see a number of global leaders take to that podium today. But the speeches were kicked off by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this morning. Netanyahu, as you know, has faced international backlash and accusations of war crimes over Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. He also faces growing pressure to end the conflict that continues to escalate. The Prime Minister touched on that, but he also took a moment to address the threats his country faces on every front. Take a listen.
Half the Houthi leadership in Yemen, gone. Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, gone. Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, gone. The Assad regime in Syria, gone. Those militias in Iraq, well, they're still deterred. And their leaders, if they attack Israel, will also be gone. And for Iran's top military commanders and its top atomic bomb scientists, well, they're gone too.
Now let's bring in CBS News Intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis, who's live for us from the United Nations. Olivia, thank you for joining us. A 40-minute address from the Prime Minister there. What stood out to you from what he had to say?
Sure, Mugo. It was remarkable that even after this weeks-long global crescendo, this wave of countries that have moved to recognize a Palestinian state, now more than 150 of them doing so, the Prime Minister was completely unapologetic as he stood behind the podium today, making no mention of the nearly 60,000 people who have been killed over the course of an almost 2-year war in Gaza, instead boasting of the military successes that Israel has had in eliminating the leader of Hamas, in eliminating nuclear scientists and generals in Iran, and almost exactly a year ago taking an enormous strike in Beirut, Lebanon, that killed Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Lebanese Hezbollah. As he started his remarks, there was a wave of protests with a number of delegates getting up and leaving the room. This was expected. The UN ambassador from Israel saying that it was a cheap stunt, a set of theatrics that had been orchestrated by the Palestinians. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu reserved some of his harshest criticism for the Palestinian Authority and for the Western countries that have moved to recognize a Palestinian state, calling the leaders of those countries weak-kneed, saying that they were encouraging terrorism, and saying that Israel would never accept a terror state being shoved down its throat. Very strong words there.
Yeah, indeed. Now, President Trump, he spoke to reporters shortly after Netanyahu's remarks, and he says there may be a possible deal on Gaza to get the hostages back. Let's listen to what he had to say.
I think we have maybe a deal on Gaza, very close to a deal on Gaza. How are you? Hello, Peter. And it's looking like we have a deal on Gaza. And we'll let you know. I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal it's going to be peace. I think we have a deal. That'll be number 8, Peter.
All right, Olivia, the president, he did not share many details on what all of that deal entails, but we heard a very firm message from Netanyahu to Hamas about what will happen if the hostages are not released. What did he say?
That's right. He spoke of this unprecedented action, he said, of installing loudspeakers around Gaza and using Israeli intelligence to stream his remarks live for people in Gaza to listen to. Listen to what he had to say about that operation.
Thanks to special efforts by Israeli intelligence, my words are now also being carried. They're streamed live to the cell phones of Gazans. So to the remaining Hamas leaders and to the jailers of our hostages, I now say, lay down your arms. Let my people go. Free the hostages, all of them, the whole 48. Free the hostages now. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down.
Right. So you hear the prime minister there asserting that these were live messages streamed in Gaza. It's unclear how many of them were actually heard by the people there, but very much doubling down on the continuation of this military campaign, which we know is still underway in Gaza City. He gave very little indication of what he actually thought of this proposal being put together by the Trump administration, a 21-point plan circulated among Muslim and Arab leaders here at the UN General Assembly this week. He also gave no indication of what he thought of President Trump pushing back on the notion that Israel could annex parts of the West Bank. He does travel to Washington on Monday to meet with the president in person.
All right, Olivia Gazis at the United Nations headquarters there for us. Thank you so much for your time.